And I'm Noah.
And this is NFGeeks. All right. No, this episode, this is going to be a very special episode because...
Special?
Yes. Because we're going to turn something that we've talked about on NFGeeks, well, not you and I, but NFGeeks has talked about a bunch of times. So we're going to turn it on its head. And that is being in an SJ family. Or in your case, it's actually an SJ living with NFs. It's sort of a reverse.
Yeah, I know. Both my mother and my father are NFs.
Yes. So that's kind of... So I want to talk about that.
Emotion is always at a high. That's can I realize...
Good, you want to start? Go ahead, yeah.
This might not have to do with that, but when you and Mom, when you are emotional, you are really emotional. When you guys are pissed at me, you are furious. When you're happy, you're all, yay. And when you're sad, you're always like, Heck, I've seen one of you at least in tears.
Oh, good. Well, we are NF, so
I know, but right. My God.
Well, that's because you don't have tear ducts. You're an ISTJ. You don't, it would interfere with your helmet.
No, I just suck them back in. Yeah. I'm not, no, the NTs don't have tear ducts. The SJs just suck them back in.
That's great. Right where they belong. So, all right, so what's interesting about this is that, Dave and I had some conversations about this as NFs living with SJs. Having SJ parents and, a lot of people. So, for example, in our family, on my side of the family, I lived with all SJs and one SP. So, my uncle was an ESFP, but your great aunt was an ISTJ. Your grandmother was an ESFJ. Your aunt is an ISFJ. Your uncle's an ISTJ. Your cousin is an ESFJ. Yeah, you are an ISTJ.
You got, every SJ.
Yes. No, I'd say. Oh, and Aunt Evelyn Tievi. She's an ESTJ. Yeah, so there's her too.
Seriously, he's had every SJ.
Yes, I've surrounded by SJs. Surrounded. Yes.
And then you were given an SJ.
That's right.
How did you feel about that?
Well, all right. Well, that's why I want to talk about this because this is where I really sort of turned regarding the greatness of the Myers-Briggs theory, and that the Myers-Briggs personality theory, it's not astrology. It's not crap. It is absolutely dead on right. And I would say it's superior to the ones that psychology actually uses. I mean, in terms of research and academic and as a field. And it's called the 5-factor model. At least that's what it used to be called in psychology. And Myers-Briggs is better than that. A lot better. For example, how I feel about it is when I finally realized you were an ISTJ, two things happened immediately. One, it made me realize how right the Myers-Briggs is. But the second thing is a whole bunch of mysteries that existed between us suddenly solved. I always thought, whose kid is this? It isn't like any of the things I like. What is that? How did this happen? I couldn't get it. I was feeling like a disconnect, and I couldn't understand why is there this disconnect? Or what was I experiencing? And finally, when we did the Myers-Briggs, when you did it, and it came out ISTJ, suddenly I was like, oh my God, of course. He's an ISTJ. He acts like an ISTJ. He talks like an ISTJ. This explains everything. And allowed me to see you in a light that was...
Were there any, events, childhood events, while you were bringing me up that you kind of noticed the SJ-ness in any way? Well, now that you look back.
Oh, sure. Lots of things. You were always anxiety-ridden about doing things right and showing up and doing all... Yeah, you were always having anxiety.
I seek approval.
Right. You were always... That was always nervous, about it. But the one thing that, and we've talked about this before, is that, and we'll talk about this in the next episode, too, a little bit, but the real thing I never got was, I loved comic books, too, when I was a kid. I did. I loved comic books, and you love them, too. You love comic books and superhero stuff, and I love superhero stuff, but you're a Marvel.
And you're a DC.
And I'm a DC. And as a child, you were like, no, Dad, Wolverine's better. And I was like, what is this?
I never said say that. Wolverine.
Yes, you did.
Did I did?
Yeah, we have a Wolverine glass. In the kitchen, there's a Wolverine glass in there that I bought for you.
Well, your characters are nonsensical.
I realize that you have this opinion. But the point being is that, that difference I never understood that difference.
But
until, yes, the Myers-Briggs thing made a difference because there's something a little more concrete about Marvel in terms of the people and their problems. Real world. Right, real cities, they have real problems.
Somewhat of getting the powers is logical.
Right. Well, I don't know if logical, but their troubles are very sort of concrete and real troubles. Whereas in DC, it's all very this idealistic thing. Even when it's dark, it's idealist. Living in this idealist sort of situation. So it's very more, it appeals to my NF side. But that's when I first realized. But all right, that's when I first realized, like, okay, I don't get what's going on. But then, like, once I realized you're an ISTJ, I was like, oh, okay, that's it. Everything is opposite, so of course he's gonna like Marvel, and it made perfect sense to me. No, it's all right. So let's talk about what's it like to be in the family. No, I'd like to hear this because, in my mind, I feel like you and I are kind of like, if you watch King of the Hill, we're kind of like Hank and Bobby, but in reverse. Whereas I'm Bobby,
and I'm
Hank, and you're Hank Hill. So what's it? So how do you feel about being an SJ in the family, and how that and being with other SJs and all that stuff?
Okay, well, with being with Grammy and my aunt and uncle
on my side
and on
right,
your side
right.
and cousin, I always really was really good relating with them. I never had any troubles with them. They're other SJs, crying out loud.
Right, so you shared a value system, you shared an orientation, a point of view.
You were the odd one out, though.
Yeah, always,
Even in childhood, and I kind of thought that, like, in general, like, with that,
yeah, no.
like, when you were there.
Yeah, no, that's right. As an adult living with me.
With them.
Sure. That's true, too. That was, because I was always an NF, and I never wasn't an NF. But what's interesting, is that, for example, you and your grandmother, who was an ESFJ, you and your grandmother never fought. Never
well,
fought.
Once.
Okay, you didn't have a fight. Okay, that wasn't even a fight. You got annoyed.
It was hilarious,
right?
If you get SJs, but yeah, we didn't really fight.
Right, you were just annoyed.
It was so stupid. We're not even explaining this.
Right, but it was mine. Okay, 1 in 15 years. So you had one fight in 15 years. I had like a fight with your grandmother every 15 minutes. There was like some thing going on. It was very difficult. So what was that like? Being, sort of in tune with everybody.
Easy to get along with everybody. I knew what they expected and they knew what I expected.
Mm.
Though because they had the more authority, what I expected really didn't count.
Well, I don't know about that, but you might have expected the same things.
Mm.
Did you find that you were sort of in line with them? Sort of?
Yeah.
Like in what ways that you can remember that were like really strong?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, in what ways can you remember that you sort of shared the same view, the same behaviors, or just the same sort of,
Well, I kind of shared the same political, but I share the same political view as Grammy.
That's right. Very the same. I know you watch the same shows, the same political shows.
Yeah.
Now.
As for my aunt, uncle, and Leah, I don't know. I don't really know.
Okay.
I can't really think of anything.
All right. Well, one interesting thing that always, that I'm reminded of all the time with you is that, and it kind of talks about how the Myers-Briggs it's more than, people talk about it like it's personality, it's types. I realize that's the language, but you're not seeing the deeper side. Talking to the audience.
I know.
The deeper side of this was just really that these things are consciousnesses that are larger than our own, that we're participating and coming through us. Because, first of all, as I get into this more, I see that the types have not just mannerisms, but like physical appearances that are similar. Okay, so there's that aspect of it. And what's even more interesting is that there's physical aspects through time. They're not bound to time. So what I mean by that is that, your aunt was an ISTJ, and you have a lot of your aunt's mannerisms and points of view, and physical facial things that she would do under the same conditions. Okay? So first of all, you kind of look like, you have her eyes, and your grandmother's, like, you look like you're on, my mother's side of the family, complete eyebrows, like everything. You look much more
big,
like,
thick eyebrows.
Yes, which is like every member of my mother's side of the family. So
well, we are Portuguese,
right? So you look like that side of the family. All right, but you have the same sort of stoic disdain for things in your face as your aunt did. Ideally.
Could you elaborate on this?
Yeah, yes. That when you're sort of disgusted with something or with someone,
you give them the death.
You just kind of, it's not really a look of anger. You don't look angry at them, but you kind of look very sort of stoic and blank. Sort of, very kind of blank and very sort of upset. Not upset, but annoyed. You're still going to deal with them, but you're sort of
You have
silently
not followed
annoyed.
the rules.
Yes, but it's silent. It's a silent annoyance.
It's
not,
a silent hatred.
Yes, it is. It's a completely silent and totally stoic facial expression of disgust and disdain. And you have the same exact expression that she did.
Well, we have that expression because somebody didn't do it right.
Right. Well, there's something. That's what I mean. There's something ISTJ about it. All right. So why don't you talk about what's being an SJ with NFs? Because certainly I've talked about being an NF with SJs. So this is your chance to let's flip it on its head. What's the other side of this?
I don't get any of your feelings.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
That's kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
I can feel sympathetic, but I can't get into your NF stuff
at all.
At all. As I said before, when you guys are emotional, explosion, man.
Well, compared to you, right?
Yeah, compared to me, like my emotion is, and.
Yeah, you have to be unhappy though for the disdain. For the disdain look.
All
right, but so what's that like being an SJ? Like how do you cope? With that? What ways do you think that you cope with being in that situation?
I always try to guess what you guys expect of me and just do it.
Okay.
But I'm not intuitive and you're not other SJ, so I can't really, know exactly and what it's going to affect it might have. Like telling everybody I know that this guy that, brought me up is cool.
Yeah, right. I know. Why aren't you doing that?
You're not that cool.
I am the coolest dad.
They don't. Okay.
In
you
this
are cool.
region.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I might even be the coolest dad in the country.
Okay, you are cool, but they don't need to know. There's no purpose for them to know.
Okay, the purpose is it would make me happy.
Why does your happiness outweigh their happiness?
Oh, I don't care about their happiness. I just want you to think I'm cool and that you want to tell people.
I do think you're cool, but I don't need to tell people.
I know, and that hurts my feelings.
I know. The first time I said that, he goes, "That is the worst thing to tell an MNF, Noah." What?
Yeah, you said, Dad, nobody cares about, what he said. You said something like...
There's no need to talk about
Yeah, that's right. You said that's... Right, that's the worst thing to say to an ENFP.
There's no need to talk about you.
That's terrible. That's a horrible thing to say to an ENFP.
But there's no need.
Oh, see, that's terrible.
I'm sorry, but there is literally no need.
All right, well, what are other ways that you deal with your mother and I as NF? So let me give you an example. Dealing with the authoritarianism of my childhood in SJs, that sort of drove me, and especially as an NF, into sort of a fantasy world. And not a fantasy word like delusional, but I was always very imaginative and had made little spaceships and had little worlds, sort of in my own little imagination to sort of escape them. What do you think you do to escape us? If you do escape us, you're not necessarily.
I don't know if this is escaping, but I do find that after being with you and Mom so long that I do have to say I'm much more sympathetic than I think other SJs might be.
All right, that's good. But when
You've
it's
strengthened my sympathy.
Oh, wonderful. But when you're all right, but what I want to know is when you're not when you can't deal with us, what do you do? Like when it becomes too much, what activities do you do? What do you do to shut us out?
I just ignore you and go do something else.
All right, like what though? Like I want to know. Like I would go
video games.
All right, what kind of video games? Anything particular?
Ones where I get to beat the crap out of you.
Yeah, you do like those. All right, you like Soul Calibur. You like Soul Calibur.
Yeah, I do.
A lot.
All right. Yeah, but there's no real need to shut you guys out. I mean, you're not it's not as like you and SJ. It's I can deal with you. You guys aren't. Honestly, when you're really angry at me, I'm really sad. I'm not brooding or getting pissed at you. I'm just kind of sad because you're the authority figures and I pissed you off.
Right, and that matters.
To an SJ.
That's right. That matters. Well, do you miss not living? Because your grandmother has passed away a while now. Do you miss sort of living in that SJ environment?
A little. I could get them more than I can get you to.
Okay. What do you miss? What do you miss the most about being in an SJ world that you used to be in with the family?
The easy and quick way we could all ship out the food.
Ah, that's interesting.
Uh,
Like, what do you mean?
well, with Grammy on, you have to admit, at Thanksgiving, Grammy and Auntie Liz could get that table set up perfectly.
Sure. So you miss that.
Yeah, I do kind of miss.
As opposed to eating on the couch, like we do now.
Yeah, I know.
On the coffee table.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I could see that. I would miss that too. All right. Great. Good job.
Yay.